have been promising a conversation to do with Easter travel. Like I mentioned earlier, of course, Easter is just a day away, and many families will be traveling and crisscrossing the country as they go to celebrate with other members of their families. And therefore, we want to have a conversation with Dr. Duncan Kibogong, who's a Deputy Director, Safety Strategies and County Coordination at the National Transport Safety Authority. Thank you for joining us, Dr.
Thank you.
All right, so first things first, I'm sure many Kenyans would wonder, like, how much involved is NTSA still, having, your officials, your officers being pulled out from the roads? Are you still, involved in, in the traveling of Kenyans from one point to another?
Yes, thanks, Betty. I think one thing which needs to come out very clear is that road safety is quite an expansive field or an expansive discipline which have so many interventions to ensure that road safety is achieved. So we are here talking about matters relating to public education and awareness programs, issues to do with enforcement, issues to do with coordinating actors dealing with road safety, training of people in driving schools, ensuring that people are tested quite well, ensuring that the drivers who have been tested have retraining, motor vehicle inspection is quite important also as relates to road safety, issues to do with road safety audits to ensure that the roads are quite safe as people or as road users use.
Right.
So that is quite huge. So the fact that we are not doing enforcement doesn't mean that you don't have anything in all this mix around road safety. Indeed, a big percentage of what we do, we still do them, and I've just meant the very few I've talked around.
All right.
So all those things, and even the fact that we are here in studio now to tell the members of the public what they need to do during this festive or during this period whereby there'll be excessive travel is quite important and part and parcel of our role as NTSA.
All right. Interesting. There has been a separate conversation on if, we've seen, maybe a dip in road accidents since the officials from NTSA were, removed from the road. I don't know what your reaction to that is.
Yeah, I would say this way, that it's still too early to say the same, and I would not say that for sure. And I think that wasn't quite long along what that happened. Two, as government, I don't think for us we'd want to say that, this and the other one, but we do have the statistics, the numbers. Road traffic crashes still happen. People, like currently we're talking about 600 or so people have died since the beginning of the year.
Right.
And what you are saying is that we still have the numbers on the road. But that notwithstanding, as I said, it's still quite early to say about that particular case. In any case, and I think this I need to make it quite clear, that NTSA, all along when we were operating on the road, we were not working in separately indeed. We were working with police officers, and indeed, as a matter of fact, the issues to do with enforcement is primarily a police function. So all what we were working that time was that we were working with the police. In any case, the people who were enforcing in NTSA at that time remained the National Police Service. So the whole thing that we are out of the road is that on that particular component, but we have so many other things which we are doing actually right there on the road, and will continue to do.
All right.
Yes.
Let's talk about, the road accidents that we've seen over the last couple of months. And of course, they have been, like you mentioned, we're talking about, did you say 600 people who have so far died?
Yes.
What do you think normally is the main cause of this accident? There are quite a number of reasons, but what really remains to be the top challenge?
Yes, I would say this way. Largely speaking, when you talk about a road traffic crash or a road traffic accident for that matter, by the way, we are moving away from the use of the word accident. You'd want to use something because the word accident seems to show that you cannot do anything about it.
Right.
So we would prefer to use some other word which is not more, rather does not bring that connotation that you can't prevent. But there are three aspects which come into play for a crash to happen. The aspect to do with the vehicle has to be there, the road has to be there, and the road user need to be there. So the three need to combine in one way or the other one for a crash to happen. You cannot get a crash without a vehicle or without a road user, or if you pull one of those three factors out, then there'll be no crash. So in essence, the major cause of road traffic crash has to do with the road user. We are talking about the behavioral aspect of the road users on Kenyan roads. So much so that we are talking about 85% plus causes of road traffic crash is the human behavior. Here we are talking about issues which touch on behavior, like for example, speeding on the road. One of the thickest, up to 30% of causes of road traffic crashes are attributed to speeding.
Okay.
People speeding on the road, or not just speeding alone, there's something we call inappropriate speed, whereby people, the road is narrow, for example, or the road is wet, and just because the speed limit posted there is 80 kilometers, does not mean that you have to go at that speed, because the situation has changed at a particular time. So that's what we call inappropriate speed, excessive speed, drink driving, people not using protective gear, for example, people not driving and yet they are not allowed to drive. So all those behavioral aspects contribute to the bigger component. Yes. So drink driving, speeding, drug driving in some cases, dangerous driving. In some cases, you'll find that people also use unroadworthy vehicles.
Yes.
And they know very well that vehicle is unroadworthy, or the vehicle has a defect, and you still just continue on to use it, including issues to do with fatigue on the main roads and all that. So all those factors are the things which we call the human aspect, or rather the human component of road traffic crash. The smaller component, 15%, is because of the road and the vehicle, likely speaking.
All right.
Yes.
There is something that was happening just maybe a month ago, and NTSA was carrying out a training, and like you mentioned, that is still one of the mandates and the things that you're responsible for. Yes. Training of the drivers, or the operators of these public service vehicles. And I remember that there was a launch of a training that was ongoing, but at the same time I spoke to stakeholders in the industry, including Simon Kimutai, who's the chair of the Matatu Owners Association, and they did not have any information about it. So how do you carry out, the trainings? Do you involve the people who really are at the center of this sector?
Yes, as part and parcel of our mandate, and of course even by we do involve a lot of the stakeholders. And as a matter of fact, one of our functions at NTSA is to coordinate all actors dealing with road safety or dealing with matters relating to road safety. So I think from where I sit and the information we have is that we did communicate to the companies and the companies and PSV circles, because this particular training of PSV is because we recognize that most of the crashes involving PSV happen because of one of behavioral aspects to do with it.
Right.
So as NTSA, we are indeed doing a lot in terms of engaging the stakeholders. As a matter of fact, even with Mr. Kimutai, we've been in a studio one-on-one basis on the same. And he was okay with that particular, that we involve them. And for us as a regulator in this industry, our primary people we deal in this particular case in the PSV sector are the drivers and the circles and the companies. So NTSA did write to all the companies and circles and telling them that, and indeed even the associations, that we are going to conduct that particular training, whereby we are going to subject drivers to a standardized training to improve on their behaviors and skills and on the road. So just to take you back, for a very long time, NTSA, we've never had a standardized curriculum for training drivers. So much so that if you have a driving school A, what they put you as content and procedure in training is different from a driving school B. So what that meant was that there was a lot of discrepancy, and that meant that someone may go for training for 1 hour, others go 10 hours, and in the long run, these are people who are supposed to be on the road.
Right.
So as NTSA, and we indeed worked with partners, including the industry, we came up with a standardized curriculum, which has never been the case at anyone. So currently, we are in the process of implementing that curriculum, and we are starting with these drivers. Subsequent thereafter, all of us have to be subjected. We also take cognizance that the act of driving or driving needs to be professionalized, something which has never been the case. So much so that people even have to undergo regular training and getting what you call CPD points, so that you get regular. In that case, then we have better drivers on the road.
All right.
So that is exactly what we are driving towards, and this is why that particular training has begun.
All right. Let's also now talk about Easter travel. How much involved, will NTSA be, especially in this, festive seasons? You have Easter coming up, and of course other holidays that will follow up. How much involved are you with regard to this specific period, and what would be your message to Kenyans who will be traversing the country?
Yeah, thanks, Betty. I think that is quite important to us, and Easter holiday is coming. It's quite pretty fast in the next, I think, a day or two, starting this Friday.
Right.
Traditionally, Easter holidays have been associated with increased number of travel And that alone, the fact that people travel increases the risk of road traffic crash.
Right.
And this travel invariably, most of the time, are associated with other behaviors. And I talked before about them. People speeding, people using routes which they have not used, matatus and PSV circles using routes which they have not used, people, or rather motorists, or rather road users or travelers using an illegal PSV. What I mean by illegal PSV is a situation whereby you get your vehicle and you put paying passengers, and yet that is illegal, and you travel a route, probably you do not know the terrain of that particular area. So that is what happens around this stuff. So for very long, in the last 2-3 years, if you check our statistics, the number of crashes seem to rise over this period. And we are calling now on Kenyans and road users in general to ensure that they they become more cautious during this particular period. How are they going to do that? The following, and I think I need to mention this, that over this particular period, there's a tendency, of course, you've seen that the rainy seasons are here with us, and also that poses a challenge. So what we are telling as government and as NTSA, that as we proceed to Easter, drivers should ensure that they do the following. And we are working in liaison, of course, with the enforcers on the road, the National Police Service, and we are actually a team to ensure that road safety is improved. Drivers, do not speed on the highways. Ensure that you use appropriate and legal speeds if necessary. 2, don't drink and drive. Don't take some drugs of some sort and drive. Plan your journeys quite well so that you don't need to drive into places you do not know unnecessarily, probably late into the night. Ensure that you use vehicles which have been licensed to drive with not the illegal PSVs. Ensure that your vehicle is checked, if possible, to check on the roadworthiness of that particular vehicle. Ensure as passengers that you use also those particular vehicle, belt up when you are inside the vehicle. Report cases as NTSA. We have an app whereby you can easily report, and we can also share the same information quickly with our counterparts.
And you follow through on that? And
we follow through to ensure, especially for PSVs. Don't, I talked about drink drive. And all things to ensure, when you are driving on a wet road, ensure that your lights are, you don't speed, because that slippery nature, the mist nature of the road is sometimes visibility is reduced, and in some cases whereby there's flooding, so you need to be careful in all that mix. So basically, we're asking Kenyans, as you go into these festive seasons, ensure that you plan your journeys quite well, so that you ensure in the long run safety aspect or we expect this season that road safety is going to improve, and we don't have the number.